Okay, here. So we have our lesson for today is all about sampling techniques and sampling distributions. So this is in three subtopics. Okay? So let's start first with our sampling techniques. Okay? So what are these sampling techniques? So we have here our different random sampling techniques, and let's start with its base. So when we say the base, this is the basic things that we need to know in order for us to have the knowledge of this um, random sampling technique. So you have there the first word, which is population. Okay. So can you please read population, Blair?
The set of all possible values of a variable.
Okay, so we have here when we say population, these are the set of all values of a variable. So, di ba, we have variable in our lessons for think last month na siya, no? Yeah, last month na discussion. Okay. Now, let's go to the next word. We have here sample. So, can you please read sample? Yep. Nga ba si Yap? Wala? Okay, let's proceed with Mascardo. Please read.
Sample is consists one or broad data drawn from populations.
Okay. It consists of one or more data drawn from the population, or it means to say gikan ra ni siya sa tuang population, ang atuang sample. And now for our last word, we have here random sampling. Can you please read Tagailo?
It is a sampling method of choosing representatives from the population wherein every sample has an equal chance of being selected.
Okay, thank you so much. So we have here, class, in research, collecting data can either be done in the entire population or the subset of each population in which what we call our sample. So if a researcher opts to use sample rather than a population, he must take considerations on the number of samples and how these samples can be chosen out of his target population. So in short, there is a relationship between our population and our sample. So we have here for example, if ABCBN, a network has 11,000 employees having required blood type in a certain study, then we have a population size of 11,000. Now, taking samples instead of population, for example, we're going to get only like 5,000 of those people. So maybe like almost half or sa atoang population. So that is the sample there. So one or more data drawn from the population in which we call this one as our subset. Okay? Although sampling has advantages, it also can be a source of bias and inaccuracy. So marang ang um nakakuan sa sample is naay chances nga bias ang results sa imuhang research. Unlike if you're going to use population, which is ang population is ang tanan gyud. Pero maupod, madugay ka since the variables are a lot or many. So random sampling is a sampling method of choosing representatives. Okay? Representatives from the population wherein every sample has an equal chance of being selected. So accurate data can be collected using random sampling technique. Okay? And in our random sampling technique is we have here a lot. Natay mga different random sampling technique. And the first one of which is our probability sampling. So the sampling techniques that involve random selection. Okay? While non-probability sampling technique is a sampling techniques that do not involve random selection of data. Kani siya randomly selected lang, while ang kaning non-probability is dili siya random. Okay? So we have here the first type of random sampling. So we have here simple random sampling. So can you please read simple random sampling, Pelayo?
Which, the most basic random sampling wherein each element in the population has equal probability of being selected.
Okay, so most basic random sampling wherein which element in the population has equal probability of being selected. So we have here class an example. So the pieces of paper correspond to each student as element of the population. So all of them have an equal chance of being selected as a sample by randomly picking um, pieces of paper in the bowl. Like for example, isuwatan na ninyo ang mga names sa papel and then magkuha lang ko og like kung ano mo kabok 14. So magkuha lang ko half ninyo, so 7. I'm going to pick 7 pieces of paper. So kung insa to'y mabunutan, so mao to siya ang ato ang lucky winners. And that is what we call our simple random sampling. Okay? Which is usually used siya sa kanang ato ang groupings or oral ni teacher. So this is ang gigamit. Now, let's go to the second type, which is systematic random sampling. Can you please read Labiste? Dili working ang microphone.
Random sampling can be done by listing all the possible elements in the population and selecting every kate element in your population list. To determining the interval to be used in identifying the samples to who will participate in the study, use the formula K equals N divided by N or population slash sample size.
Okay, very good. So, ang kaniya to ang systematic random sampling class is, naano siya yung mga gipang choose daan nga. For example, we have here this population and then you're just going to say nga, I will get every third of the population here. Okay? So, kani siya kay every third. So you have there 0, 1, and 2, and then you have there 5, and then 6, 7, 8, and then 8, 9, 10, 11. So, mao na siya every third, mao ni siya to ang makuha. So that is systematic. Or another way, you can like have, for example, di ba? For example, daghan kay mo, and then, mo na ang teacher nga, sige, I will select every, second students from a random list. So, for example, nag-base ko sa inyo, sa ako ang class record. And then, kung kinsa to ang ikaduha, and then ikaupat, ika-6, and then mauto sila ang makakuha na ko nga ma-appeal sa ako ang random list. Okay? Or mauto sila ang mga students nga ma-appeal sa ako ang research. Okay? Or one more thing, napod ni siya, ma-apply ni siya sa tuang klase. Like, or sa face-to-face nga klase ninyo sa una. So, um, mag-count tanan student. Like, random lang yun nga counting. By seating arrangement by ana. And then, mo ana dayon ko nga, okay, I will select those students who count a multiple of 7 numbers. So, katong mga multiple of 7 numbers, like for example, katong 7, 14, 21, 28. So, sila kung kuhaon. Okay? And so on and so forth. So, that is systematic random sampling. So, katong ganina, we have simple, which is we use only fishbowl. Okay? So, that is for the second technique. Now, let's go to the third one, stratified. Can you please read Pelayo? Ay, mana si Pelayo, no? Sorry. Torlao.
The population is divided into different strata or divisions. The number of samples will be proportionately picked in each stratum. That is why all strata are presented in the samples.
Okay, so you have there, when we say stratified random sampling, it is already in divisions. Okay, so like for example, um, I will like write the list of girls or boy students here in our class, and then um, I will draw a name in each gender. Like for example, sa girls, magkuha kog duha. And then here po sa boys, magkuha kog duha. So that is stratified. Okay? In which proportionately pick sila in the same nga level. So kung duha ang sa girls, duha po ang sa boys. Okay? So you will get there a proportional number for each group. And then samples will be selected at random rang gyapon. Random gyapon kay bunot man siya. Okay? So kani kay makaibaw gyud ta nga ang mugawas babae, ang mugawas diri sa pikas is duha pud ka laki. Okay? Now let's go to the next one class. We have here cluster sampling. Please read, Lord.
Population is divided into clusters or groups, and then the clusters are randomly selected. All elements of the clusters randomly selected are considered the samples of the study.
Okay, so you have there population is divided into clusters or groups. This one, kung sa atong strata ganina kay naa jud siya bases, na siya stratum, this one is i-divide lang yun siya ang imuhang population into groups. Okay? And then you're just going to randomly select. Like for example, if daghan atong population 50, and then i-divide na ko siya og into 4 groups. So in ana. And then I will just get like man ako 3 from this group and then 3 from that group and then 3 for this group. So that is cluster sampling. Okay? So ang nakalahi sa ato ang stratified o cluster is ang stratified na siya like bases and then makaibaw ka unsay outcome. Sa kaning sa cluster, we don't know if girl or boy ba atong mapunit. Okay? So that is for our cluster sampling. Questions, class, so far? So which do you think are the most basic random sampling nga gamiton in class or any group activities or kanang community? What do you think? Is it the simple, the cluster, the systematic, the stratified? Sa kaha class. Any idea? sa inyong school before when you were having face-to-face class? Even though what dili siya sa research or kanang activities lang ninyo. Unsa usual nga ginamit sa inyong teacher or gigamit? More on fishbowl ba? Which is simple or stratified or systematic? Cluster. Ah, cluster. Okay. So somehow you're using cluster. Okay. Especially sa kanang mo report, no? Cluster gyud ang gamiton. Para mahibaw-an kung kinsay nitabang sa inyuhang report. And then ang ma-randomly pick, maoy mo, go sa tubangan. Okay, so actually class, all of those things, katong 5 kabuo, 5 ba or 4? Okay. I think 4 lang, no? Ah, yeah. Those 4 random sampling technique class is probability to siya, ha? Probability techniques to siya. Okay? So this one. And now, let's go to our non-probability sampling. Okay, so ang atoang non-probability sampling is we're going to start, which is no need naman ni siya og katong pick-pick. So you have there, please read Gunda.
Convenience sampling, wherein the researcher gathers data from nearby sources of information, exerting minimal effort. Convenience is being used by persons giving questionnaires on the streets to ask passerby.
Okay, thank you so much. So, ang kanya tong convenience class is kanaging natay research, and then we don't have like any kanang naba kay giset nga kanang, what do you call this one? Like nakay-giset nga mga trabaho baron in ana mao ni siya ang gamiton kaning convenience sampling. Kay diretso ra man ni siya class, in which you're going to just give questionnaires on the streets to ask, and then you're just going to let them answer for your research. So mao ni siya ang ato ang convenience sampling, in which I think you have tried this one maybe kung ang makita mo sa streets nga nailay mga hatag o kuan kanang questionnaire and then ipa-answer ninyo. They are having convenience sampling. Okay? And then for the next one, we have here snowball sampling. So can you please read Ando?
Snowball sampling, general sampling in which the samples have traits that are rare to find. Existing subjects provide referrals to recruit samples required for a research study.
Okay, so this one, snowball sampling, it's already a chain referral sampling, in which like if you know someone who have this in your subject, then pwede maka-spread siya or makahatag baron ang imong gitagaan first, and then makahatag siya tao nga in ana the same pod sa imong subject sa imong research, then you can use snowball sampling, in which dili kay siya dali since you are going to find people magyud that suits to your subject. Unlike sa tong convenience nga, mas easier way siya to use. Okay, and now we have here our quota. Quota, please read the Silio.
Sample units are picked for convenience, but certain quotas are given to interviewers. This design is used in market research. Researchers choose these individuals according to specific traits or qualities.
Okay, for this one is not siya like for example in the picture you have there ang quota niya is male and it should be above 50. Like that. Or somehow you're going to look for people nga na siya specific traits or qualities nga may-use sa imuhang research. So that is quota sampling, in which mas mangita gyud ka og way to find these people. Dili lang kayo nga patak-an lang nimo siya hatag since research should need these people man for your sample. Okay? And now for the next one we have here, volunteer sampling. Rojo, can you please read?
Sample units, volunteers, UB, not sure. Add.
Wala na siya. Nagsayop na siya. Studies diretso.
Kung saan na pag-pronounce siya?
Wala na siya labot. Ay, sorry, naka-off. Sorry. Wala na siya na, kano na siya, typo.
Sample units, volunteers, studies wherein the measuring process is painful or troublesome to a respondent.
Okay, so this one is wherein you're going to get people nga imurag yun siyang imurag yun siyang i-choose as your volunteer for your sampling. Okay, so these are the classification of our sampling methods. So we have here the probability samples and the non-probability samples. We have systematic, cluster, stratified, and simple for probability and non-probability convenience, snowball, judgmental, or quota. Okay? Or kani siyang judgmental mo na siya atong volunteer. Okay. So, now class is we are going to get our sampling distribution of sample means. Okay? So, this time is we're going to get kung pila jud ang ato ang kuhaon as our sample. So, sampling distribution of sample means. So, it is frequency distribution using the means computed from all possible random samples of a specific size taken from a population. The means of the samples are less than or greater than the mean of the population. So we have here our sampling error. This would be the difference between the sample mean and then the population. So here are the steps that you can use. So determine the number of sets of all possible random samples that can be drawn from the given population by using the formula of our combination. So in which n is the population size and then the n nga smaller is your sample size. Then you're going to list all possible samples and compute the mean of each sample. And then you're going to construct the sampling distribution and the histogram of your sampling distribution of the sample means. So, this one class. An example for this, pero, proceed sa ako sa next class ha. So that you will know more about population and sample. So, later na siya. Kanang mga example. Okay. So, let me know if makita ninyo balik akong screen. Makita ra ba? Okay ra? Makita ra mo computing for the parameter? Okay. So, you have there, before we're going to have first our sampling distribution of the sample means is let's try to know what is a parameter and statistics. So, nganong we need to know this parameter and statistics? Because we are going to use this one for our random sampling. In any case, na siya'y magamit. Okay? So, let's start with our this one. So, in statistics, it is sometimes impossible to gather data from the entire population, but through sampling, researchers get a clearer picture of the whole group being studied. So one can draw inferences about certain population by carefully selecting random samples using your random sampling technique and using data to make interpretations about the entire population. So most of the researchers need numerical values to easily interpret the results of the study. So those values are computed based on all of the elements of the population or from the random selected samples that were taken. So the values can be classified into parameters and statistics. So parameter and statistics are usually computed through different measure of central tendency and variability. So let's take a look first. What are the measure of central tendency class and measure of variability? Sige, if you can still remember your grade 7 lesson, grade 7, grade 8, unsa din ng measures of central tendency? Sige daw. Anyone? Okay, for central tendency, tagaan ta mo og clue. Mnemonics. MMM. And then for variability, you have, okay, very good, Rojo. Mean, median, mode. For variability, you have there RSDV. Actually, nakuha ni na to uban sa atong previous lessons. RSDV. Kahinumdum pa ba? Okay. Actually, that is range, standard deviation, and the variance. Those are the measures of variability. Okay. So now, class, let's start with our parameter. Okay, parameter. So parameter is a measure that is used to describe the population, while statistic is a measure that is used to describe the sample. Okay? Nakadiha, measure, describe population, PP, parameter, statistic, SS, statistic, sample. Okay? So you have their parameter. We have an example below are the grades in grade 11 students during the third quarter. So you have 94, 75, 85, 89, 88, 91, 79, 84, 78, 77. So we are going to get the parameter by solving or computing the population mean, population variance, and population standard deviation. So here, so let's start with our population mean. So the mean is the sum of the data divided by the number of data. So the mean is used to describe where the set of data tends to concentrate at a certain point. And then population is the mean computed based on the elements of the population or data. So we're going to use this one. We're going to read that one as mu. Kani siya. Mu is used to represent population mean. So be careful, class, because in each of this, it has different symbols. Kaya basin maglibog mo ba? To compute for the population mean, we simply add all the data. And that data is, we denote as X. And then you're going to divide it by the number of elements in the population, N. So, ang population class ha kay big N siya. So, we can apply mu is equals the summation of your data and then over the number of population. So, population means summation and the number of elements in the population. So, gamiton to na to og balik si grade 11 nga grades. So, you have there student number 1 until 10 and then iyahang grades that is 94, 85, 88, 79, 78, 75, 89, 91, 84, 77. So, that is our X. Okay, mo na siya to ang x, which is atong population. So to get our n class, okay, this one, no. This is not the population, but this one. The population is n. So you have there, n is equals to 10. Kay 10 man kabuk estudyante. And then you have there your x. So you have this one. Ato siyang gi-add, which is summation niya. That is 840. So 94 plus 85 until 77, 840. So we're going to substitute the values obtained to our population mean formula. So summation of the values or the elements over the number of students. So you have there 840 divided by 10, that is 84. So our computed population mean or mu is 84. Okay? And now let's go to our population variance and population standard deviation. So this is still in our parameter. Okay, parameter pamanta, population. So variance and standard deviation determined how spread or scattered each data on the set from the mean. So kung unsa siya ka flat ba or talinis ang imuhang data. So standard deviation is simply the square root of the variance. While population variance is the computed variance of the elements of the population. So you can have there the symbol as squared the siya class. We're going to read this one as sigma. And then raised to 2, so sigma squared, is used to represent population variance. So you can use to compute that one formula. So sigma squared is equals to the summation of your x minus your mean raised to 2 over n. Okay? So you have there x is the given data, population mean, and the number of elements in the population. So we're going to the next one, which is standard deviation. Standard deviation is computed the elements of the population, and we're going to use the sigma only. Okay, sigma. So it is used to represent population standard deviation, or simply ato ra siyang gi-square root ang ato ang variance. Kung atong variance ganina kay sigma squared, ang ato ang standard deviation is ato ra siyang gi-square root para makancel ang square diri. And then gibutan na tog square root ang sud. Okay? So now let's try to solve for our population variance and standard deviation. So same gihapon ang ato ang data class, which is katong na students number and grade, but this time na natay gi-add on. So the third column is computed through subtracting the mean to the scores, while the fourth one is computed by squaring the third column. So atong gibuhat diri class, gi-minus nato siya sa mean. Given data minus the mean, you have there 10. 85 minus 84, 1. 88 minus 84, 4. And so on and so forth. Well, this one, ato siyang gi-squared unsa tong nakuha diri. So 10 squared, 100. 1 squared, 1. 4 squared, 16. And so on. Okay? And then this one, imo na din siyang i-summation. I-add di mo 100, 1, 16, 25, 36, 81, 25, 49, 49. That is 382. To get your summation of your fourth column. And then, to get the population mean, di ba mo ni siya tong formula. So you can just simply substitute this one. You have there, mean pa man ni siya, mean. So mora gyap mo ni siya. And then, for population variance, so we can use this one. Kaya maura man ni siya, di ba? Summation of your given data minus mu squared. So 382 over n, kay n man gyapon nato, or population kay 10. So 382 382 divided by 10, that is 38.2. And that is now your population variance. Now, mo proceed na dayon ta sa tuang standard deviation. So, standard deviation ara siya square root. Square root of 382 over 10. So, you will have there square root of 38.2, that is 6.18. And that is your standard deviation. Or pwede na ninyo idiretso inyuhang population variance ganina, inyo ra siyang square root. Okay? And that is your standard deviation. So, you need to do this third and fourth column in order for you to solve easily. Kay, kung kani siya, imo pa ni siyang buhaton binagsa, taas kay kag buhaton. So, magbinagsa pa kain ani pod niya. Okay? So, that is for our parameter. So, population mean, population variance, and population standard deviation are what we call parameters. Okay? Parameters. And now, let's go to our statistic. So, from the previous data of the population, suppose that we will randomly select only 7 data out of 10 data in the population. Since we said statistic is sample. Diba? Sample man atong statistic. And then in our starting pa lang sa atong discussion, we are going to get our sample from our population. So, mo man siya atong sample ganina, grade 11 students. So, nikuha tag 7 data out of the 10 nga population. So, ang 7 diha kanang na mga circle ngayon yung makita. 94, 89, 88, 91, 79, and so on. Now, to get your statistic, you are just going to get the sample mean, sample standard deviation, and sample variance. So, let's begin with our sample mean. The sample mean is the average of all data of the samples. The symbol, read as X bar, kani siya, is used to represent the sample mean. Okay? So, to compute for the sample mean, we simply add all the data and divided the number. So, same formula lang gihapon, pero ang na-change niya ang iyahang symbol. Diba kung ganina mu, karon X bar na siya. Okay? And then, from what you saw in our previous formula for population, iyahang n is dako, while in sample, that is smaller n. Okay? So, X bar is the sample mean, and then summation of X, and the number of the elements. So, we have here. So, mo man is just a sample ganina. Diba? Sa sample, sa population, sorry. Population. Ihang mean is 840. Now, dire na usab pod ang iyahang number of elements, that is 7 na from 10. And then, to get our sample mean, so, you have there, i-substitute ra nato, i-add ni ang ato ang mga gipangkuha ra. So, 94, 88, 79, 89, 91, 84, 77. So, that is 602. And then, divide nimo with the sample, which is n, 7. So, 602 divided by 7, that is 86. Diba? There are changes. Kaya ang population mean man nato ganina is 84. But this time, this is 86. So, our computed sample mean is 86. In this example, there is a slight difference between the population mean and the sample mean. But notice that there is no difference regarding the method in determining the value of population mean and the sample mean. So, ang divisor niya na change, and then also the sample size. And now, for sample variance. So, computed variance of the element, you have there S squared. Okay, S squared na siya for the sample variance. Diba sa tong variance ganina, that is sigma squared. Karon is S squared. Sorry. And then, you have there to compute just use this formula. S squared is equals to summation of your given minus your sample mean raised to 2 over sample minus 1. Okay. And then for standard deviation, same as well. S na siya. And then na siya is square root. But, same gihapon. Given minus sample mean squared over n minus 1. And now, we're going to have our standard deviation and our sample mean. Okay. Sample standard deviation and sample variance. So here, same sa atong gibuhat ganina, mag-extend na pud ta sa right og duha ka buok. So the first one, you will have the given minus the sample mean. So 94 minus 86, 8, 88 minus 86, 2, 79 minus 86, negative 7, and then i-square dayon nimo ang iyang result. You have there, and then i-add nimo 64, 4, 49, 9, 25, 4, 81, 236. Then you can compute already for your sample variance and then your sample standard deviation. You have there for your sample variance, that is 39.33, and then for your sample standard deviation, that is 6.27. And that is now your statistics. Remember that sample mean, sample variance, and the sample standard deviation are what we call statistic. Okay? Parameters, population, statistics, sample. Okay? So that is for parameters and statistics. Now, ato lang i-run through ang atoang examples ganina nga gibiyaan. Okay. Here, since 6 minutes na lang mahuman na tong klase. So, reloading pa siya. Here. So, a population consists, since kabaw naman ta nga population og unsa ang variance, unsa ang statistics, unsa ang parameters. So, example here, a population consists of numbers 2, 4, 9, 10, and 5. So, we're going to list all the possible sample size of 3 from this population and compute the mean of each sample. So, first step, determine the number of sets of all possible random samples that can be drawn from the population by using the formula of the combination. So, combination is, I think, namo pa grade 10. Diba? Where n is the population size and n is the sample size. So, kabaw na mo unsay n nga gamay ug unsay n nga dako. So, you have there, n nga dako, which is population size, is 5. Diba? Kay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 man kabuok. And then, n nga 3, or sample size, that is possible. So, you're going to use that one. So, inyo na siyang isolve. Since, if kabaw mo use sa calculator, you may use it, since mas dali man ang sa calculator. Okay, but if you want the formula, you have there, equals n factorial over the sample size factorial quantity, population size minus sample size factorial. Okay? So, makita man na ninyo sa inyuhang class. Sa inyuhang calculator. You have there NCR. So, inyo na siyang ibutang 5 and then click Shift NCR and then 3. So, makuha ninyo ang result nga 10. Okay, kung kani, substitute ninyo. 5 factorial, 3 factorial, quantity 5 minus 3 factorial equals 5 times 4 times 3. Then cancel, 5 times 4, and then over 2 times 1, 20 over 2, that is 10. So, that is now your sets of all random samples. Yan mong makuha from the given population. Okay, 10 possible samples. Step 1. And now for step 2. List all of the possible sample and compute the mean of each sample. So, imo na siyang himuon og in ani as your table. So, kuhaon nimo tanan sample niya class. So, you can have 249, 2410, 245, 2910, 295, 2105, and then 4910, 495, 4105, and then 9105. Dili pwede magbalik-balik class. Okay? So, mo na siya imuhang sample. And then, kuhaon nimo ang mean. Kani siya imong i-add. I-add ang number of terms and then divide the number of terms. So, 2 plus 4, 6 plus 9, 15 divided by 3, that is 5. Okay, 2 plus 4 plus 10, 16 divided by 3, 5.33. And then, mora na siya. Same process. Mora mong balik-balikon. Okay? Distribution atong gibuhat ani class ha, distribution. Now, let's go to number 3. This time, mag-construct na din kag sampling distribution table. So, you have there, katong mga result mo nga mean ganina, o katong sample. And then, you will have your frequency and your table. So, unsa din yung frequency, teacher? Kaning frequency mo na siya ang number of times kung kapila ni gawas imuhang sample mean. Like, imo nang i-list imong sample mean from lowest to greatest. So, lowest there is 3.67, then 5, 5.33, and then i-write nimo tanan. Then, kuhaon na din nimo yung frequency. Ang sample mean, kapila man igawas ang 3.67, we have only 1. So, 1. We have 5, 1. Ang probability day class is the number of frequency over to the number of sample. So, ang sample na to is 10 man. So, that is 1 over 10 or 0.10. For 5, 1 gihapon, so 1 over 10. 5.33, we have 1, 2. So, that is 2 over 10. And then, for 5.67, we have 1. 6 kay 1 lang gihapon. 6.33, we have only 1. 7, we have 1. 8, we have 1. So, if mo na siyang i-add tanan frequency, that is 10. Probability is equivalent to 1. Okay?
So,
yeah.
So if you're doing the frequency, you have to search for the means first.
Yeah.
And to see how much there is in the sample means. And then you have to do the probability on how much there is inside the means of the sample means or frequency.
Absolutely. Okay? Yeah. So that's why you need to get the mean first. Katong nasa tong previous slide. Okay? So, now after constructing, you can now make the histogram. So, isuwat ra nimo tanan sample mean dere, and then imo na siyang i-make as your histogram. So, probability na imong ibutang dere. So, you have there, kana siya. Mo na yahang histogram for this given population. So, that is the probability of your sample means. So, that's why gipaila-ila gyud ta mo ni population, ni sample, ni parameter, o ni statistics. Okay? Questions, class? Actually, napa ni siya more examples, no? But since time naman, I want you to go over na lang. Okay? Sabotable naman siya kay the same raman gyapon sa atong gibuhat. Okay? This is another way of getting the sample. Possible sample size. Okay. So, questions, clarifications for today's lesson? I know, daghan-daghan po siya, no? Pero laban lang. If makasabot mo ani class, dako na kayo ni siya use for your research for grade 12. Dali ra kayong panahon. Diba? Okay. So, wala ray pangutana. Sige. Kung wala ray pangutana, since next week ba? Sakto ba? Next week inyuhang prelim. Double check sa nako. I know, 21, 22, 23 pa man di ay.
Next week.
Next week. Okay. So, since next week pa man di ay, yung next week na. Sa junior high dito. Okay. So, ang inyo lang buhaton class is, ako siyang i-open tanan quizzes ninyo. And then, nag-note naman ko kung kinsa ang wala pa or nanay answer. And then, makita po na nako ang dates nga ni-submit mo. So, please lang kung comply ha. I think makita raman na sa inyong kilid sa inyong LMS, no? Kung napa may buhatonon. So, i-complete lang nato and then prepare for an activity for this lesson. Okay? So, I think ari lang usata and then, yeah, that's it for today.